Hi, I'm Ben. This is my grandmother. She was born in 1922. She is going to be 91 this year. So I'm going to proceed with asking her questions regarding her life from the 1920s, from the 1930s to the 1950s. Any information regarding the rebuilding of Germany during the 1930s?
Well, we heard about it, and it it was always a beautiful country. And then we heard they were modernizing, and that's about as far as I remember at that age.
How did you feel about the spread of communism in the Soviet Union when you were a teenager?
We knew it was a bad thing. We didn't know what it involved, but I know my parents didn't like the idea, and yet there were a lot of people that were for it. Poor people, especially.
Did you know anyone who was communist?
They never really admitted it, but you kind of had an
What
idea.
evidence? What did you? Looking at them, how did you catch it? How could you tell? Okay, this guy's a communist.
The way they spoke, they sympathized with them, the communists. They believed everybody should share what they had.
What opinions did you have of Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini when they first came into power?
Mussolini, not too bad, because we heard how he was helping Italy, and he wasn't involved then with Hitler. But Hitler, we never thought well of him. Stalin, we didn't know because he was our ally at the beginning. But Hitler was not liked by anyone.
Why didn't you like him?
I don't know, just seeing him on the movie tone news, and he just was so, I don't know, just like a mean-spirited person. And then when we start hearing rumors about how he treated the people, not his own people, the Jewish people that lived in his country, he was very mean to them.
How do you feel about the various different ethnic groups that lived in your neighborhood during the Great Depression?
We all got along well. One block had Polish and one block had Irish, and everybody tried to stick with their own ethnic groups because they were familiar with them. And we did mingle in school. The young people mingled a lot because we went to the same schools. And it was interesting to learn their customs.
Any information about the Great Depression in Europe? Like, I'm sure something in Europe paralleled what's happening here, so describe what's happening here.
I can remember about the Irish, the potato famine, and they were starving, more so than any other place. And I guess all the other countries were, but that stood out. Most of the Irish people were trying to come here to get jobs, they thought.
Do you know any Irish in your neighborhood? Can you explain anything about them?
Yeah, you did. But you did know neighbors that were Irish, but we were all in the same boat, so we didn't think rich or poor. We were all the same, poor mostly.
All right. Go to the 1940s now. Where were you when World War II was announced? What were you doing?
I was in the movies. I had a date, and they stopped the screen, and they announced that we were bombed at Pearl Harbor, and the ship was sunk, and everybody was excited, and we really didn't know what we knew was in Hawaii, but we didn't know too much about it. But then when we heard there were a lot of men killed, and the boats were sunk, and it was very traumatic.
Explain Grandpa's experiences in Italy during World War II, whatever you remember.
Well, he felt very welcome when they went. Mostly Italian-American soldiers were sent to Italy because they felt they could speak a little bit of the language. And when they arrived there, they were welcomed. Don't forget, Italy was with Hitler at that time. So when they saw the troops coming in from America, they were greeted very warmly, and they all felt welcome. And they were speaking a few words of Italian that they knew, and of course the people were happy to see them. And they gave them some food, which they were starving themselves in Italy. And and they would give the boys some cheese or some wine, which they didn't have too much themselves. And the boys would give them shoes, GI shoes, and sometimes clothes, because they had barely anything. And they felt welcome there. They enjoyed it. I mean, they didn't enjoy the fighting, but they enjoyed the people.
You're telling me during our rehearsal about your friends on the mountain who couldn't.
Well,
What was that?
that's where Grandpa was injured. He was shot going on, what was the name of the place there? Monte Cassino. And there was a lot of people were killed up there. But he was shot, and that was the end of the war for him, because he had to go to the hospital. But there were a lot of Polish soldiers at that time that were killed up there, and they have big cemetery up there, and so many crosses. So it was a very hard time for them.
You told me beforehand that like your friends, like she was up on a mountain hiding or something.
They had no food. I worked with her, and she was pregnant at that time. They had no food, and she couldn't feed her baby. She was breastfeeding the baby. The baby starved to death because if she didn't eat, she had no nourishment for the baby, and it affected almost everyone. People there didn't have food.
Okay. Did you hear about the Holocaust or the Soviet concentration camps at home?
There were always rumors, but we never knew the real facts. After the war, when Hitler committed suicide, they came out with the stories. They showed pictures of dead bodies from these prisons, and it was like mountains of people.
Mm-hmm.
They would tell them that they were going to this camp. They would let them go, men, women, and children, and then in the end they would they gassed them. When they were in the place, they didn't even know what was happening to them. They were just happy they were together, and then they would just fill the buildings up with gas, and that was the end of it. That was it. That was the end of their lives.
Okay, that's good. Do you know anything about the change of culture? Did you listen to any Italian artists or anything during the 1950s? What elements of European culture came over to America?
We always respected the Italians for what they knew, their artwork, their everything. You know, they were so talented, and then the boys that came home were starting to talk about what they saw, the beautiful things in Italy, and people were more interested in going there and seeing things. And of course, we learned firsthand from the people that came here too, and it's all true.
Any information regarding the House of Un-Americans Activities Committee?
That we learned from the news in the movie theaters. We would have movie tone news, and they would show arresting movie stars, directors, writers. They suspected them of being un-American. I don't think every one of them was guilty, but it did ruin their reputation. They never had a chance to be famous again because there was always that stigma attached to them.
Opinions on the death of Stalin and the arrival of, I think it's Khrushchev, but I'm not 100% sure.
We weren't sorry. And,
yeah, get rid of him.
Yes. But somebody just as bad would come into their place. So it was,
Did you feel any sense of hope? Maybe this guy might be a little better?
We all did. We did think that, but no, they all wanted power. They all wanted power. So,
like you said, like good people, but if you give them a little power.
Yeah, then they go berserk.
Of course. How do you feel about the spread of the Soviet Union to other parts of Europe and the spread of communism?
I don't know. It was
Like, were you afraid of the atom bomb, or were you thinking
Well,
okay, hearing in the news that Romania was just conquered by the Soviet Union, or the threat of nuclear warfare? What did you think of all that?
after the atom bomb, we didn't fear it anymore. It was so devastating that we thought nobody would ever use that power, so to speak, again. And we didn't really know much about the atom bomb. We heard rumors, but we never thought that when President Truman decided to end the war, use it, then we knew how devastating it was. Before that, we didn't realize the bomb, we figured, but not so deadly.
Yeah. So, how'd you feel about? There was also genocide. I don't know if you call it genocide, but he was killed. Stalin was killing his own people. How'd you feel about the concentration camps that were there?
Well, I don't know how they got away with it, which is just exactly what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that in countries right now. They're killing Syrians. They're killing their own people.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens. People let them do it. But he was so powerful, Stalin and all. Nobody would go against what he wanted to do. He would kill them.
So since that stuff is people are trying to help, how do you feel about the arrival of the UN,
The
United Nations?
I never thought it did what it was supposed to do. They really don't. And I still think that it's not successful. Because when there's a big problem, nothing happens. No solution. So I said,
And the FDR, did FDR give you any sense of hope?
oh, we loved him. We thought he was the best. We didn't know at the time that he was such a sick man. They kept that from us.
Mm-hmm.
That he was always in a wheelchair, but we never saw him that way. We always saw him from the chest up, and he was always smiling. We never knew that he couldn't walk, that he was elected and he was crippled and he couldn't. Not that that's, anything against him, but we kept voting for him.
It make him seem weak.
Yeah, that's true. But we had all our hopes with him, that we thought he was so wonderful.
In the fireside chats, when he would go on.
Oh yeah, we sat by the radio and thought that was, yes. He gave you hope. And in those days you needed hope.
Anything else you'd like to say regarding anything we've spoken about?
Well, it seems like history repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
And some things are better and some are the same.
What's the same?
Conflict, lies, people not doing what they're supposed to do in government,
Mm-hmm.
and people still worshiping them and voting for them again and again. I did the same thing.
All right, well, thank you so much. It's
You're
been
very
great.
welcome.
You can stop the recording now.